It's time to sharpen our axe now. First, let's take a look at the tools that we use. Primary tool is a file. Single cut mill bastard file, 12s, 10s, 8-inch. You need to have a guard on it and a good handle. An old piece of harness leather with a hole punched in it makes a real good guard. A little block of wood, circular piece of leather, even a piece of fire hose works good. Some handles you drive the file down in. Others, there we go. Others have screw thread on it that you screw onto the end. And then there's this kind, which is a clamp. And it'll fit any size file, and you just clamp it down. A file card, absolutely essential tool for cleaning the filings out of the file. It's even got, this one's even got a little pick in the end of it right here for picking pieces of metal to get stuck out. Got to have that. The stones. Traditional axe, round axe stone, which is two-sided with a fine and a coarse side. This is real good for carrying in the woods with you. You can put it in your pocket. Here's a new type of a stone, to me anyway, that's an axe stone, and it's got a groove in the center between the fine and the coarse side, and that really protects your fingers. Before we start sharpening, let's take a look at the double bit axe. One edge is sharpened differently than the other. Your good edge, your chopping edge, is sharpened at the 25 degrees. The other edge is much steeper and a blunter, a steeper angle, and that's your grubbing edge. You cut roots in the ground with it, branches that are near the ground where you might hit rocks, and that saves your good edge. Now the way that, and this is a personal preference, but the way that I always tell at a glance what my good cutting edge is, I put the trade name, True Temper. If you're chopping right-handed, you hold an axe like this with your left hand here at the handle, your right hand here. If you're standing like this and you can read True Temper on it, then this is your good chopping edge. Let's put it in the little vise I got. It's good and tight. I do one more thing. I take a little wedge and run it underneath like that to sort of raise the edge up and give it support when I'm filing. Now for safety, always with this process, all the way through both gloves, and you have the protectors on the files. Now the process is to file away from the edge. You always sharpen away from the edge in that motion. And the thing I want to stress to you here, again, is like with the rasp, you clean it out, but you only use the file in one direction, and that's pushing forward. Now, as far as the files go, I have two preferences. One is Simon's and one is Nicholson, two good American-made files. So that's the filing motion, but there's a little nick in the edge right here. The shape is good. It needs to have a little bit of rounding to it, but it shouldn't be rounded off too much. What I would do at this point with that nick in the edge there is I would true up the edge by running the file this way. And this is how you can straighten an edge or reshape an edge if the edge isn't correct. It just flattens it out, but it takes all of the nicks out of it. So I'm going for this 25 degrees right here, except it's not a straight, it's a little too thick, see it? It's too thick back in here, so I'm going to have to file the cheek off right here some. But it's not a straight 25. It shouldn't be a straight edge on it. It should have a slight curve to it like that, and you might be able to see that. The finished shape is going to be a half moon like this, with it filed more back here into the cheek. Now remember, I'm not sharpening this, I'm bringing it back. I'm rehabbing this axe and then sharpening it. If you take care of your axe, you can touch it up in 15 minutes with a file and the stones. But when you're starting from starting over with one, it takes about an hour to do that. After the filing, it's time for the axe stones. I'll use the safe one here. Still use your gloves. This is a sharpening oil. Norton, the people that make the stones, also make this honing oil. So we'll put some on the coarse side. Sort of let it soak in. Rub it around. That makes a really good lubricant there. And then what I do is hold it in my hand like this, under my arm. And again, you're working away from the edge, but this time in a circular motion with the coarse side. Always away from the edge, into the edge, like this. So periodically, oh, that's looking pretty good, actually. You have to take and wipe the grit of the stone and the steel off and then put a little bit more oil on if it dries out. Still got a little bit on there. Whoop, whoop, come back here. Same thing. Now when you're finished with the coarse side and you do this side, then you flip it over and I hold it like this and I do this side, okay, like so. As soon as you feel a wire edge, then you go to the fine side of the stone and do the same thing on both sides. And you go from one side to the other and you push the wire edge back and forth until it's real, real thin. Then what I do is I strop it. And a piece of wood will work pretty good. Just sort of draw it, strop the wire edge one side to the other across a piece of wood like that, and it'll break the wire edge off. We're all the way through the process of sharpening now, but you need to test the edge. So let's switch to the finished product here. And out of the oven comes the finished one here. Hopefully you can see this is the shape. If you can see the sharpening here on this, this is the shape that I'm looking for in the finished grind. It's that crescent shape and takes the thick part out. I've got the label up on this, and this is a bluegrass. You notice that that's a perfect fit. But if you look at the edge in a light, in a strong light, the sun over your shoulder, and I mean look right at the edge, the very edge, it should not reflect light. If it reflects light, you don't have a sharp edge on any edge tool. So looking right straight down at the edge in the light, I see no reflections here. So that means, theoretically, it means that I've got it sharp. Now, there is a technique where you can use your thumbnail and it should bite in and not slip off for sharpness. But my favorite technique is if the edge is sharp enough to dry shave the hair off your arm, then it's sharp enough to use. So here goes. Yes, indeed it is. That's sharp enough for me right there. One last thing you need to do, and that's protect the axe head. What I like to do is put a little bit of lubricating oil take some beeswax, a little block of it. The oil cuts the beeswax. And since I'm working on an unsheathed axe, I should put my gloves on. You just kind of rub it in. And like I said, the oil cuts the beeswax and it gives it a real good sticky coating that stays on it, that comes, and you wipe the excess off, and it comes right off when you go to chop, but it keeps it from rusting. One last thought on sharpening for you. Let's go over here. This is a high-speed grinder. Do not use these on your axes. It'll draw the temper out of the axe, burns the edge, ruins a good axe. Use a file, then use your axe stone. If you need to grind an old pedal grindstone like we started out on, it's a real good choice if you have one available. What do you say we go to the woods and use the axe now?